What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're looking at some r/ProRevenge stories. Revenge to the tune of $50,000 plus on an owner who wrongfully fired me. I applied for a job as a bar manager at a new resto bar that opened up in my area, Ontario, Canada. The owner of this bar had some issues with her liquor license being revoked at a previous establishment, and there was some sort of stipulation, this part I'm not clear on, where she was required to do the following in order to get another liquor license. Firstly, not be on site or involved in the business in any capacity for any reason. She was a prohibited person, and I believe she made her husband the owner on paper, but for this story she is referred to as the owner. And secondly, hire a manager with 5+ years experience and a Smart Serve certificate to run and be responsible for the bar. After a short interview process, I was offered the job and was told of these terms. I accepted them despite the already apparent red flags. I was a very poor student. When the restaurant bar opened, everything quickly fell apart. Despite the owner not being allowed to be on premises, she proceeded to micromanage both the kitchen and front of house. She stopped scheduling kitchen staff to save money and was working in the kitchen herself. Food quality plummeted, customers became irate at how long of a wait it was, and word spread quickly in the small town. Eventually, a select few regulars became our only customers. More hours got cut, waitresses and kitchen staff were let go. The owner was now drinking at the bar and at the same time was waitressing and cooking. This was all in the matter of a month. One night that month, it was exceptionally nice out, and we had a lot of boaters in the area. We had a pier near the bar where boats could dock and walk into the restaurant. A large group had walked in on this night, and they were both very clearly underage and very clearly over-intoxicated. I immediately cut them off, to which they made a very large stink about it, enough that the owner's husband came over to ask what happened. I explained that I'd cut the group off and wasn't going to serve them, to which the owner's husband decided to take their drink orders and serve them anyways. Obviously, money was tight, so they didn't care about the rules. The next day, the owner pulled me into the office and accused me of stealing $50 out of the till the night previous. I knew this to be a lie that could be easily disproven because there is a camera located directly above the till that is synced to the time code on the POS. I was fired on the spot. I 100% believe this was because I was refusing to serve customers and thereby damaging their bottom line. I was really miffed to be accused of doing something I didn't do, and more upset that she used this lie she made up as an excuse to fire me. Because the stipulation of her having her liquor license was me working at the bar as manager, I emailed the liquor control board when I got home and informed them of the rules being broken at the bar. A liquor inspector came to meet me later that week and took a statement. He then paid a surprise visit to the bar and was able to witness all of the things that I informed him, including the owner both being on site and being involved in the business, serving minors and serving intoxicated persons. The liquor inspector slapped them with a very large fine, north of $50,000. Their liquor license was suspended and the owner was too broke to pay the fine and was forced to close the restaurant. I received death threats from her for a while after that, but the revenge was absolutely worth it. Wow, what a story. You know, I've come to expect this from the revenge subreddits. The quality of writing and the quality of story is just so much higher, I think, than a lot of other subreddits. So let me get this straight. This is what happened. The authorities said you can't serve minors or the openly intoxicated. The manager said, okay, but I'm gonna do it anyway. The authorities then gave her a $50,000 fine, and the manager had a surprise Pikachu face. Now, just before we get into the next video, I quickly want to say, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please hit that button. We are now on 245,000 subscribers. That's only 5,000 away from 250,000. That's just mind-blowing. I would absolutely love to be able to say that we hit 250,000 on Christmas Day. But for that to happen, a lot of you would need to subscribe, so come on, let's try and get there in time for Christmas. Now for our second story. Neighbor's dogs kill co-worker's cat. Co-worker ruins their Christmas. Quick note, I was part of this story, but not the dealer nor receiver of the revenge. Years ago, I used to work with a receptionist in a vet clinic named Margot. Margot was, and still is, a very sweet 65-year-old woman who had been at this practice since it was opened, some 40 years ago. She always had a smile, a joke, compliments, and baked goods for your birthday. She never had an unkind kind word to say about anyone. She was seriously one of the coolest people I'd ever worked with, and she basically knew everyone, from our regular clients to our mailman's granddaughter. The only bad thing about Margot, and this was not her fault, was that she and her family lived next to one of the trashiest, nastiest families I'd ever met that had two even nastier pit bulls. I'm talking nastier than poop that had been hoarded by dung beetles for years nasty. And these dogs were constantly escaping and terrorizing the neighborhood, even trying to get into her house. Margot had asked them more than once to please keep the dogs contained, especially since she had an elderly fat cat named Smokestack, and these pits had attacked smaller animals before. The family basically told her to rot in heck, that they knew what they were doing, how dare she accuse the breed, yada yada, basically blowing her off. Margot knew there had been reports filed against her neighbors, but nothing had ever been done about it really. So she made sure to keep Smokestack in the house to keep him safe and was very careful not to let him out. If you'd been paying attention up until this point, you'll notice I'm using the word was and had regarding old Smokestack. And it was as awful as you think. 3 weeks before Christmas, Margot had the day off and was in the garage with Smokestack fiddling with some Christmas decorations. Unbeknownst to her, the pits next door got out and broke through the bottom of her garage door. They went right for Smokestack before she could blink and started to tear the cat apart. Margot screamed for help, and it was only when her son and husband came out with a baseball bat that they were able to free Smokestack from the jaws of these dogs. I was working this day and will never forget when she came in, crying harder than I'd ever seen anyone cry in my life, clutching poor dying Smokestack in her arms. Her husband had to hold her while we tried to bring Smokestack back, but we couldn't do it. It would have taken a miracle of God and then some, and he passed away. A truly trash way to go in what should have been the golden years of his fat cat life. Margot sat there for a while with his mangled body, quietly crying for a while before she finally kissed whatever part of him was still intact and stood up. She told us all, "I've got a job to do, take care of him girls," and then left. We figured Margot would take a few days off to be with family and then continue on with life as normal. We figured wrong. Now, when I say Margot knew everyone, I mean everyone. Right after she left the hospital, Margot gathered herself up and went to the police with pictures of poor Smokestack and told her story. The same police officers she had watched grow up over the last 20 years, from rowdy middle schoolers she used to help babysit to the officers they were today. They were absolutely shocked to hear what had happened to their surrogate grandma and pushed her case to the front of the line. The case found itself before a judge whose daughter had gone to school with Margot's daughter. The judge granted an emergency dangerous animal extraction warrant to her neighbors. Of course, there was a hearing within 2 weeks, which I gotta admit was ridiculously fast. The neighbors tried to argue that their dogs weren't aggressive. They even went so far as to accuse Margot of having it out for their family and making it all up. But their argument trickled when the dozens of dangerous animal reports were presented and finally completely dried out when Margot presented the surveillance video her grandson had gotten, showing the dogs coming into her property and attacking poor Smokestack. The emergency extraction and humane destruction of her neighbor's dogs was granted. It was Christmas Eve when Margot heard a knock on her door. She opened it up to see the neighbors standing there, sobbing uncontrollably. They were begging her to stop animal control, that they had these dogs since they were puppies, how the kids would be devastated and it would ruin Christmas, and if she could find it in her heart to give the dogs another chance. Up until this moment, the neighbors had behaved abominably. They didn't offer to fix the garage. They never apologized for trying to slander her name in court. Heck, they didn't even pay for Smokestack to be cremated. At no point had they even shown the slightest shred of remorse for what damage their dogs had done. And as the neighbors stood there, blubbering and whimpering about how this was going to ruin their Christmas, Margot looked them straight in the eye and told them in her calmest voice, "You took away my family, so now I'm taking yours," and shut the door in their face, just as animal control pulled up onto the driveway. Margot was not surprised as she watched the dogs get hauled into the truck and taken away. After all, it was her idea for animal control to take the dogs on Christmas Eve, a perk from having known the AC officer supervisor for years. Margot even made sure the dogs were euthanized before the outside Christmas lights turned on that night. The family never received the remains, nor did they ever get a chance to bring another animal into their family, as the father proceeded to drunk drive into a telephone pole that same night, killing him instantly. Oh god. The mum went off the deep end, so CPS picked up the kids by February, and ultimately the house foreclosed in September. Despite how traumatic Smokestack's death was, I'd like to think that if the neighbors had shown at least some regret, Margot might not have gone as far as she did. She was and is still the person to forgive and forget. Or maybe she ultimately ultimately knew it had to be done to push it to this point of no return before another family lost a member to these irresponsible neighbors. Either way, thank you Margot for making the world a little bit safer for the pets in this world, and rest in peace Smokestack. Hopefully I'll see you on the other side with your favorite orange sock and a can of tuna. Oh my goodness me, well I've just got to say, rest in peace Smokestack, you will be missed. Honestly, I know we're on r/ProRevenge right now, but this would not be amiss on r/Nuclear Revenge. What an incredible woman this lady is though. Liked by almost everyone, so kind, so complimentary, so selfless, but also with a steely backbone. Not often do you meet people like this, so generous, but also do what they believe in and stick up for their loved ones. Yes, you could argue that two wrongs don't make a right, but in many ways what she did was right. First of all, justice for Smokestack, and second of all, those dogs were seriously dangerous. They needed to be put down. Yeah, it sucks for the family, but honestly, they deserved it. Anyway guys, that is going to do it for this episode of r/ProRevenge. I really hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. What drama in those two stories. If you want more revenge stories from me, click either of the two videos you see on screen right now. They are both absolute crackers. I will see you over there in a second. With that being said, don't forget to like, comment your opinions down below, and subscribe to my channel for 2 videos each and every day throughout December.